deceit. Telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's the David Knight Show.
As the clock strikes 13, it's Wednesday, the 11th of February, year of our Lord 2026. Well, today we've had some amazing revelations that have taken place in the last couple of days with the Epstein stuff. I think one of the most interesting revelations is what Thomas Massie said. He said this is going to be bigger than Watergate or any of these previous political scandals. And I think he's right. We're already looking at perjury jeopardy for Lutnick as well as for Kash Patel. And there's also some creepy religious aspects that have turned up in this as well. But I gotta say, there's one essay that I'm gonna cover. I've been waiting to talk about the Skynet stuff. Got a little bit of it last couple of days, but there's something beyond that we're seeing here. I've been a skeptic of AI, and I pointed out its many shortfalls. There's a very disturbing essay written by a guy who works with AI, who uses it for coding, and how this is extrapolating and going to quickly extrapolate out to pretty much every field of endeavor. This is very important, very disturbing. We'll be right back. Well, I'm going to begin with some of the Epstein stuff because this has so many different implications with it. Not only does it give us a glimpse into people who are running our society, and look, when we look at the AI industry, as this guy says, he says, I'm talking to the essay I referred to at the beginning of the program. He said, I talked to my friends and they really don't understand what's happening. He said, part of it is that they are using free versions of AI, or they're using versions that are months or years old. And he goes, you don't realize how rapidly this stuff is advancing. He says, I'm seeing it first because I'm in the software industry. And that's what they focused on first. Because if they can get it to write code, then it can evolve more quickly than if they started on another field. But he goes, now it's ready to roll out into legal aspects and many other things. He says, I get it. A lot of people have used this. They see the hallucinations. They see the mistakes that are out there. And he said, but it is changing very quickly. And he said, even though I work in the industry, and I've got an AI startup, he said, we're not really the people who are really controlling this. He goes, it's just a handful of people who are controlling this. Which is why, folks, what we see about this handful of people who control the world, what we see about how dark and sinister they are, that's why this is so important. So we're going to begin with some of the revelations out of the Epstein files. And then we're going to take a look at the kinds of things that these people in control are going to be using it for. When you look at somebody like Donald Trump, who I'd look at this, and as people say, well, he's trying to protect his friends, his donors and stuff, and intelligence agencies, CIA, Mossad, et cetera, I get that. Yeah, that's all a part of it. But look, nobody has been more closely tied to Jeffrey Epstein than Donald Trump. And I would even put the Clintons in that category. For 15 to 20 years, he was his wingman, his party pal. They did all this stuff together. And when you look at how Trump has been focused on AI, focused on digital currency, focused on mRNA stuff, how in the world can anybody believe this guy's not a globalist? How can anybody believe that he could be trusted for anything? Anything. It's just beyond me. And so when you look at the character of the people in and around Epstein, this is the key thing. New Epstein records destroy the official narratives. We knew a lot about the horrific pedophilia, the human trafficking, but now there is the missing jail footage, the industrial quantities of acid, an FBI document casually referencing a decoy dead body being taken out of the prison. And of course, the interesting thing is, this guy who reported it was dismissed as a conspiracy theory. He's now missing. He's just telling people, I'm very scared. I saw this. And they're taking out a decoy body And I saw what they did, and now he's missing. And this was actually in the FBI's documents, actual records. The kinds of things that we were told for years did not exist, or were rumor or conspiracy theory. Someone calls you crazy for suggesting this photo of Epstein may not have been him, but, they got a lot of photos of Epstein in various places. He's like Carmen Sandiego or whatever, Waldo. Anyway, Epstein files confirmed that an FBI agent physically removed a hard drive from the jail's video recording system, wiping all footage from the period surrounding Epstein's death. Again, feds blocking investigation. That's really what FBI stands for right now. We've seen this type of thing before with Flight 800. You had the FBI going around and confiscating recordings that showed the missile accidentally fired by the Navy, but they didn't want to have any culpability for that. They'd already done it with Iran once before. And then when they did it off the coast of Long Island, they went around door to door confiscating evidence from some of the people who were trying to blow the whistle on this. That's the FBI. Feds blocking investigation. And so they did that with the video surrounding Epstein's disappearance. And I mean it when I say disappearance, not death. Then there's the acid, 50 gallons of it, as I pointed out, swimming pool treatment. Isn't it interesting that he bought like a decade worth of this stuff just before he was arrested? As they were closing in on him, he got word of that as well. So they set up, one of the reasons we're seeing even more stuff in the last couple of days is because the Department of Justice, under pressure, because they have refused to comply with the law. Does that sound familiar? ICE refuses to comply with the law. The Pentagon refuses to comply with the law, their own rules of warfare. The ICE people refuse to comply with the law. Trump, of course, refuses to comply with the law. It's an emergency. I'm going to issue some orders. This is what we're seeing everywhere. Why should we be surprised with this? It rots from the head down. It rots from Trump. He has set up this lawless example, and everybody is following it in his administration. So they're not going to release all the files. They've even said, this is all you're going to get. And it's only half of what we've got. And just complete defiance of the law, as we have seen, complete defiance of the Constitution. I mean, he just said one of the stories I'll get to here later. Gun Owners of America pointed out one of their members showed them a form. He wanted to manufacture a weapon. And so he's trying to comply with all law. He fills out all the forms, and it says, specify why you are going to build this. And he writes in there, to exercise my God-given right. And they denied it and referenced that. That's the arrogance of the federal government now. All of them, the bureaucracies and the rest of it, just defying the Constitution, defying our God-given rights, defying the law. And so they've set up a little area there where members of Congress can go and look at these files and search them, and they can look at the unredacted versions. But they're not allowed to bring any electronic devices. They can't make any recordings. They can't have any staff that are there. They have to go in, and they've only got 4 computers. You got 3 million pages. And as one of the Democrats who went in there, and I won't even mention his name because you'll immediately dismiss what he has to say as partisan stuff. But it's not partisan. He said, look, with this many files, we need to have hundreds of computers, even if you're only going to let members of Congress in to take a look at this, if you really want to allow us to see this. It's a bottleneck. You got millions of documents, and you've got 4 computers to look through them and a limited amount of time. And you can't do any pictures. You can't bring any electronic devices in with you that would show you a reference of what they had redacted so that you could look at that. So these people are going in there, pencil and paper, trying to write this stuff down. It's ridiculous. Everybody sees what's going on. They think that we don't see this, but we do. It's like, what's his name? Oliver, who wrote the song.
Oliver Anthony.
Oliver Anthony. He says, they think we don't know, but we do. Everybody sees this. This is one of the things that makes it so damning. So Ro Khanna, who along with Thomas Massie had put this law together, sponsored it, got it passed eventually over the pushback of Mike Johnson. And I got to say, let me just throw this in. This is an aside, just in case I don't get to the news. Mike Johnson just never ceases to amaze me. Now, what is he doing now? He has come up with a bizarre legal fiction where you can talk about AI hallucinating. How about the speaker, Mike Johnson, hallucinating? He doesn't want to there's a move to pull back and to recover the power of Congress to tax us, which Trump usurped with the tariffs. The tariffs are a tax. And we've now got some conservative think tanks that have looked at this and said, yeah, it has raised prices about $1,000 per household over the last year. And so they are taxes. They do get paid by the consumer, and their prices are going up. But they're going to deny that. They deny that the prices are going to go up. They deny their taxes. They will deny that the sun comes up. As a matter of fact, they will deny that one day changes into the next. That's what is at the heart of this issue. Mike Johnson has put the thing and say, starting at February the 10th and continuing on through the end of July, there will be no calendar day for the purposes of this bill to stop the tariffs and to take back that power to Congress. Can you imagine that? How insane is that? How much further will this guy go to embarrass himself, to destroy all credibility? This is Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson, who shut Congress down a couple of weeks early, even though they're going to take the entire month of August off. He shut down a couple of weeks early so they wouldn't have a vote on the Epstein stuff. Now he is pretending that the calendar is frozen at February the 10th until the end of July so that he can cover for Trump's tariffs. What a disgusting lying sycophant he is. I've never seen anything like this. This is beyond imagination. He's going to do it again. And so anyway, let's get back to this. So they found 6 men, said Ro Khanna, that they wanted to read their names off of, people that were redacted but should not have been redacted. According to the law that was passed by Congress, specific to this, there would be no redactions except for the names of victims. Instead, what they did was they redacted all kinds of stuff. Guilty people, victim. When I looked at that, I thought, well, maybe they just turned it over to AI, because how in the world could you get that many documents redacted in that period of time? And maybe that explains why they said there's a lot of stuff here. It doesn't make any sense why it would be redacted. But they did redact a lot of the perps.
Somebody pointed out
the victims. Yes.
Somebody pointed out that in a couple of places it redacted the word "don't," and they pointed out "don't" is Don T.
We got the apostrophe, right? You treat the apostrophe as a space, yeah. Don T. President Don't. That's what we should call him. It's please, President Don't. That's not allowed under the Constitution or law. So a lot of really strange redactions, things that should have been redacted that would be obvious if somebody was doing it. But again, it does look like it was automated in some way, whether it's AI or some quickly cobbled together program. So they found these names, and Ro Khanna read them on the House floor, because they can do that without having to worry about being sued for libel. And so who were some of these people? Well, one guy who figures prominently in all this stuff is an Emirati businessman. His name is Ahmed bin Sulayman. Sulayman, I guess. Sulayman.
Probably
anyway.
Salayam.
Salayam? Yeah, well, it could be. Who knows? He is some salami guy. I got to tell you, he was in one of the emails that he wrote. He said, "I really love that torture video you sent me." It's like, whoa. Put that together with Khashoggi, I guess, cutting people apart. Anyway, Lex Wexner, identified by many people as simply Bath and Body Works. Yeah, definitely. But he's also part of Victoria's Secret, and that really is no secret that it's out there. Anyway, Jeremy Raskin is one of the Democrats looking at this, and I know we're all going to look at this and say, oh, wait a minute, Jeremy Raskin, oh. It's, it's kind of like when Elizabeth Warren calls out Trump's grifting corruption and obvious in-your-face corruption. It's like, I wish we really had a better source for this, but she's absolutely right, I got to say. If she's right, she's right about that.
I just imagine... Elizabeth Warren saying, what do you mean we, white man?
So, yeah, Tonto. Well, Raskin examined uncensored copies of multiple documents on Monday. The DOJ's newly established satellite facility created to allow members of Congress to review original versions of the materials, but not their staff. And no pictures and no reference electronic stuff to come with you. And so... today, Pam Bondi is going to be in front of the House Judiciary Committee. There ought to be some fireworks from that. Some interesting clips for you tomorrow, I'm sure. I imagine what she's going to do. She's going to go in there, she did before. She's going to be loaded with a lot of personal ad hominem attacks against anybody who asks her a question. And rather than answer the question, she'll attack them personally. And that'll be the response, which is what we've seen when she testifies in the past.
One problem, though, with that is... someone is prepping her with those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you're going to go ad hominem, if you're going to be mean and snarky, you want to be the funniest, smartest person in the room. Pam Bondi is not that.
Yeah, it comes across just as mean and snarky. It's not going to really work for her. And we all know what this is really about. Anyway, so just 4 computers for 500 members of Congress to use, and to go through 3 million documents. One particularly significant example, a statement from Epstein's legal team that appeared to clash with Trump's previous assertions about when and how his association with Epstein ended. Specifically, his claims of having ejected him from Mar-a-Lago. Now, it turns out, according to these memos that they found in there, that Epstein was not a member of Mar-a-Lago, but he was a guest and allowed to come. So something that is very different with that. Now, you've got Breitbart and a lot of the Trump apologists who always will try to make lemonade out of whatever comes out with Trump. They said, well, Trump turned him in. And Trump says, see, I told you, I said he was an evil guy. And we have these things that have come out at the local police department. Yet you have to look at the timeline of that. Look at the timeline. As I said for the longest time, and I haven't seen anything that changes any of this. They were best friends for 15 to 20 years. The friendship broke up over this competition over a piece of property that was high profile that they both wanted and were in competition for. Now, Trump eventually got it, but he carried a grudge. Does that sound familiar? It's like he eventually got back into the White House, but he carries a grudge. And so over this other house, not the White House, but this other house, it was shortly after that there was an anonymous call about Epstein that kicked off these investigations. I think that had something to do with it. You even had the little sycophant Mike Johnson say, well, he was the one who blew the whistle on him. How do you do that if it's a hoax, right? And you hung around him for 20 years? Part of the stuff that's coming out of Lutnick is he said, well, I bought the house next to him. He invites us over for lunch, right? Not for dinner. This is really got to make this innocent. It was for lunch. And he takes me around and shows me the massage table. And he leans over to me and goes, the right kind. I get a massage every day. And he leans into him and he said in a real creepy way, he says, the right kind of massage. So I took that as innuendo, and it offended me, offended my wife. We left and we never had anything to do with him again. Then we find out otherwise in these documents. We find out that he committed perjury when he said that. And the question is, if this story of Lutnick was true, and it probably was about that initial meeting, what was not true about it is that he was offended and never had anything to do with him. If that was true, if it takes about 15 minutes for somebody to figure out what Epstein is really about, why did Trump hang around for 15 years? That's the question. You think he didn't know any of that stuff? You think Trump wasn't exactly the same, just like Clinton? So Bondi had previously stated that she and her DOJ personnel finished the redactions back in July. So Raskin emphasized two key concerns. He said, so why the delay between these redactions that were done in July and releasing them? Why'd you do that? And again, this PR nonsense that she did about a year ago. We had all these clowns that still have millions of followers. I was like, why haven't people unfollowed people like DC Drano and Mike Cernovich and the rest of them? Why did they continue to follow these people? They expose themselves as utter shameless shills. Why are people paying attention to them?
Well, you got to remember, Mike Cernovich wears a Hugo Boss suit, so.
Does he?
Yeah, it's a big deal. There's a famous clip, or at least it was.
Mike Cernovich.
Where he's talking about, this is a Hugo Boss suit. This is a Hugo Boss suit. Like, oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm the boss. Yeah, well, mine are straight out of Goodwill. If they don't have any holes in them, they'll take it, The Attorney General and the Department of Justice have said this process was something that could be completed by them back in July, said Raskin. These materials could have been released a long time ago, but they're just being released now, he said. And if every member of Congress who voted for the discharge petition, if all 217 of us spent every waking hour over the DOJ, it would still take us months to get through all these documents. With just 4 computers accessible, he noted it would require considerably more time for lawmakers to complete the review. He said, we need a couple hundred more computers. So we're going to have to start by posing questions directly to Bondi about the process that produced such flawed results and that has created such a mystery. But also we want to get a commitment from the DOJ to clean it up as quickly as possible and to get them to release the millions of other documents that are still out there. Again, this is bigger, folks, than Watergate. If the president does it, it's not illegal, right? We'll see about that. These are a lot of chickens that are going to come home to roost. This is a lot more than a missing 18 minutes from Rosemary Woods on an audio tape. And this is something else. Who cared about Watergate, the third-rate burglary of one political party to the other? Nobody cared about that. But you look at what is at the core of this. Pedophilia, rape, perhaps murder. People care about this, especially because of the people that are involved in it. So a new Epstein victim, aged just 9 years old, has been revealed. And again, we've seen the creepy pictures of Jeffrey Epstein. You see a little child's foot, maybe younger than 9 years old. You see him with toddlers in his arms, with the toddler's face redacted, and they're on the airplane and things like that. It is absolutely beyond disgusting. That's why I say this is so much worse than Watergate or anything like that.
This has gone on for so long, over so many years, and so many memes have been made about it that a lot of people have forgotten just how horrific this actually is.
That's right.
It's not just like, oh, he was, some funny guy that did some awful, some bad things. Like, no, this was a
just
monster.
An eccentric billionaire. Mm-hmm. Yeah, with this bizarre temple that he has, right? You read through these files, said Raskin. You read about 15-year-old girls, 14-year-old girls, 10-year-old girls. I saw mention of a 9-year-old girl today. I mean, this is preposterous and scandalous. Yeah, where do we come up with the words to describe this? Certainly, there's a lot of names of people who were enablers and cooperators with Epstein that were just blanked out for no apparent reason. The review only covers 3 million files. They're going to keep half of the files still away from people. So on Monday, we had Ghislaine Maxwell invoking the Fifth Amendment rights and avoiding answering any questions at all. And today you'll have Bondi essentially doing the same thing, except she won't invoke the Fifth Amendment. She'll invoke the ad hominem attack. That's what she's going to invoke, stonewalling. The DOJ has removed some redactions from the sprawling files, replying to one specific file that was posted by Massey with 18 blackout names. Todd Blanche, another guy who has forever destroyed his credibility, said, we've just unredacted all non-victim names from this document. The DOJ is committed to transparency. What cynical liars these people are. It's amazing. And while the previously redacted Epstein files, one anonymous person emails the disgraced financier with a message, where are you? Are you okay? I loved that torture video. Turns out that the back and forth between Massey and Todd Blanche actually kind of revealed who this guy was. Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayman. What do you think it is?
I would think it's Sulayman.
Slime. You'll call him Sultan Slime, the Sultan of Slime. So anyway, the Sultan of Slime, an Emirati businessman who sent the message about the alleged torture clip. Another newly unredacted document showed billionaire businessman Les Wexner named as co-conspirator. The file, going back to August of 2019, showed Maxwell, French modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel, and Epstein's longtime executive assistant, Leslie Groff. Now, let me just fill in something here for you for Brunel, in case you forgot. This is a guy who ran a French modeling agency, and this is also the agency that Trump sent 14-year-old daughter Ivanka to, doing sexually explicit pictures and stuff. So I wouldn't say explicit, but sexual nevertheless. Virginia Guffrey said that Brunel had sent two 12-year-old girls to Epstein as a birthday gift. He was eventually arrested for being a pedophile, and Brunel died in prison, as many pedophiles do. I don't know if he staged a death and got out like Jeffrey Epstein, or if they just killed him. There are a lot of pedophiles don't make it out of jail for a good reason.
Also, when I was combing through the Epstein files the other night, I came across some photos of him apparently kissing other guys, Brunel.
Really?
Yeah, looked like he was, they were very small and blurry. It's hard to tell, but it looked like him and another man, so.
Wow. Yeah, that's the singularity, as I point out. All these different creepy things that we've seen from all these people, they all come together with this crowd. Forget about the AI singularity with man and machine. It's this singularity of Satanism. So Thomas Massey had this to say, as I've been pointing out, saying it's bigger than Watergate.
I think historically, when we look back at the Epstein scandal, it's going to be bigger than Watergate. And it's going to be, by the way, the president didn't go to jail, the attorney general did. It's going to be bigger than Iran-Contra. And here's why. It spans 4 administrations. It's deeper than any political thing on the surface. And so I think in terms of the number of people who are affected, I mean, how many people were affected by Iran-Contra, okay, or Watergate? I mean, specifically in that instance. Obviously, everybody's affected when there's a lack of transparency and bad or fraudulent things happening. But I mean, directly affected or implicated, that was a finite group of people in both of those. Here we have what seems to be almost an infinite number of people involved with Jeffrey Epstein. At least we don't even know yet how many there were in the criminal enterprise or the seedy part of it. And it's like that Spider-Man meme where there's 6 Spider-Men, they all look the same and they're pointing at each other. You've got all these billionaires pointing at each other. You're in the Epstein. No, you're in the Epstein. No, you are in the Epstein. It's you who is in the Epstein files. And you're the one who went to the island. I didn't go to the island. Anyways, there's sort of this circular finger pointing that's going on.
Yeah, and it is this group of people that really are the globalists. And as he's pointing out, so many people involved. It's government. It's the billionaire industries. It's foreign governments as well. It's not just the American government. That's why this is much, much bigger than any of these domestic scandals that we've had before. So Massey said the revelations have shown the links that the Trump DOJ and the Trump FBI have taken to continue the Epstein cover-up, going as far as to break federal law, an increasingly futile attempt to keep the truth from the American public. The enhanced political pressure from Massey and Ro Khanna has resulted in the DOJ deciding to allow members of Congress to read this, kind of. They always do just a little bit to try to, it's all just about the visuals and the optics. It's not really any disclosure. They will not be given access to the physical documents themselves. The DOJ has limited access to members of Congress alone, excluding any members of their staff, and they'll be able to take notes on any files that they view, but they can't bring any electronic devices. Couldn't even have something like this thing that I've got. So They've also limited the trove of over 3 million files from 6 million. So despite being given limited access, these revelations are starting to come out quite a bit. And they are opening the door to criminal charges. Criminal charges to people in Trump's cabinet. Criminal charges to the head of the FBI. Look, remember with Bill Clinton, and this is one of the things all of my friends who are Democrats and leftists could not get it through their head. So what's the deal? He had a consensual fling with Monica Lewinsky. And it's like, well, no, that's not the issue. I mean, first of all, I was always very upset about the fact that Ken Starr essentially covered up all the really serious charges that had to do with selling secrets and had to do with financial issues and all the rest of the stuff. The serious criminal allegations of rape and sexual abuse, that was all covered up. Instead, what do? He focused strictly on a perjury charge, right? The blue dress and so forth. And we got evidence that what you said under oath about your relationship with Monica Lewinsky, a consensual relationship, you denied that was there. And now we know that you did have a consensual relationship with Monica Lewinsky. And so Ken Starr, that's the only thing Ken Starr, who later was the defender of Jeffrey Epstein, the only thing that Ken Starr came after Bill Clinton for. Perjury trap can be very, very serious. Kash Patel and Pam Bondi better be hoping that you're going to see them pull out every stop to be as big a sycophant to Donald Trump as they can possibly be. There was a parade in Germany where they had floats making fun of politicians, and the one they had of Donald Trump, they had him on his knees with his behind up in the air, and they had like little lips with kisses all over his behind. And they had the names of politicians of different European governments underneath each of the kisses. I guess you could add Thomas Massie, Pam Bondi, and Kash Patel to that as well, right? This is significant because Kash Patel testified to Congress that FBI had no evidence of any other sex traffickers. This is the FBI's own 2019 document that lists Wexner as co-conspirator in the child sex trafficking. And it wasn't unredacted until last night. That's the key thing. So while Wexner's role in facilitating the crimes of Epstein has been very well established for years, the revelation that the FBI officially acknowledged him as a co-conspirator in 2019 dismantles the narrative woven by the Trump regime that it has not withheld the identities of any of the notorious pedophiles' accomplices. Look, we all just rolled our eyes when Kash Patel and Dan Bongino said, there's nobody else there. I've looked at the stuff. There's nobody else there. Well, that's a big issue now for them.
Yeah. I continually remember how uncomfortable and nearly panicked Bongino looked during that interview.
Yeah, that's right.
He was just looking around continually.
Well, he jumped that he's a rat that jumped that ship, but maybe not soon enough. We'll see what happens with all this stuff. But look, that's the issue. You look at Martha Stewart. All that stuff about insider trading, it wasn't about that. They got her in a perjury trap. And so, again, that can be the most serious crime that is there. So they got some real jeopardy here, especially as they're approaching the midterms that we look at here. In September 2025, Kash Patel testified before Congress regarding Epstein. He was asked, who did Epstein traffic these young women to? Remember that? That was Republican Senator John Kennedy. So they said, so we've got these charges against Epstein and Maxwell of trafficking, but we don't have anybody that they trafficked it to. He's pointing out the utter absurdity. This is the thing. I mean, the Trump administration, regime, doesn't even come up with plausible lies. They're so amateurish and stupid. And so you have Senator Kennedy says, so who did they traffic these people to, right? They have to traffic them to somebody. Kash Patel says himself. There's no credible information, none, that he trafficked to other individuals. And I've played that clip for you many times as well. The revelation that the FBI had confirmed that Wexner was a co-conspirator of Epstein's by 2019 suggests that Patel lied to Congress during his testimony. Doesn't suggest it. It proves it. Just amazing. What else did he lie about? Did he lie about his use of the plane and other things like that? The DOJ went on the defensive in a feeble attempt to minimize the seriousness of the revelation. Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, offered an explanation for Massey for the sweeping redactions. He said, one particular document highlighted by Massey, which had 18 of 20 names redacted in it, was so heavily censored because it included numerous victim names. However, the unredacted thing shows that there are only 2 of the 20 names were victims, meaning that the DOJ illegally redacted, 16, illegally redacted 16 of them before being published forced to publish its revised version. And again, this is one of the ones where the torture video comes out, and that was the Sultan of Slime, who was part of that. So Sultan of Slime, he is chairman of the Ports, Customs, and Free Zone Corporation. Maybe he was running ICE in his country. I don't know the equivalent of that. I don't know. He's referenced in 336 of the more than 3 million Epstein files. It reveals a year-long relationship between the two. Epstein states in his relationship with the Sultan of Slime began in 2002 in a letter of recommendation regarding a property that the Sultan of Slime sought to lease in New York City. I can vouch for him. He likes torture videos. And there's a lot of documents that contain redacted images. Don't try to use your imagination with that. Anyway, just 2 days before his death, Epstein quietly added Bill Gates' science advisor, Boris Nikolic, as the backup executor of his will, to make sure that he forwards the appropriate stuff to wherever Epstein is living now. Boris. Was Boris Badenoff, I guess? Yeah, I guess he was. Straight out of Rocky and Bullwinkle. Anyway, the Sultan of Slime coordinates a receipt of a quote-unquote package that was sent to him from Epstein. I wonder what or who that package was. Sultan of Slime's ingratiation into Epstein's network confirms that Epstein introduced the Sultan of Slime to Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. Sultan of Slime invites Barak to visit him for dinner to discuss business opportunities during his stay in Tel Aviv at a penthouse located at 1 Rothschild Boulevard. This is like a Dickens novel or something, isn't it? The way these things are all closely connected. It's amazing. Sultan of Slime also coordinated a visit to the ranch, the Zorro Ranch, where it's alleged to have been a black market baby farm being run by Jeffrey Epstein as well. Got to have some of those superior genetics passed on, don't we? So Blanche responded to Massey's revelation that Sultan of Slime was the sender of the torture video and basically revealed who it was in that. And so they said, when you look at the people who are looking at this, of course, you had Congresswoman Boebert goes, and she was very angry at what she saw and the fact, the way this thing was set up as well. And there's a quote in this article from Zero Hedge talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, said she revealed that Trump attempted to persuade her to vote against releasing the Epstein files because the disclosure would harm friends of the president who would be implicated in them. She said in response, he prioritized men who abused and raped young girls because those men are his friends. She says, this is damning. This has merit. This, folks, tells us who this guy is, really does. The extent of the cover-up that he continues to perpetrate not only risks alienating crucial political allies, but also could lead to action taken against key administration officials like Bondi and Kash Patel and, of course, Lutnick as well. Now, let's talk a little bit about Lutnick because he got his moment in the spotlight as well yesterday. This is the guy, I call him Lucky Larry, because Lucky Larry Lutnick was taking his child to kindergarten on 9/11. So he didn't die with the rest of his employees. The entire business was taken out, along with his brother. He didn't die. He was taking the kid to kindergarten. He's really lucky. And so this is the guy who, as he says, for some reason, he buys a house right next door to Jeffrey Epstein. He says, there's only 10 emails over a couple of decades. It's like, well, if you're living right next to the guy, do you really need to email him that much? And I don't know how many emails I have to you that are not articles that I'm sending or something like that. It's basically zero. But he goes in and he's creeped out by Jeffrey Epstein right away. And he talked about what a disgusting, vile person he was. And we didn't want to have anything more to do with him. Then it turns out a few years later, he goes to the island. But again, remember, Lucky Larry Lutnick is a family man. That's his alibi always. Oh, I took the wife and kids and the nannies and all the rest of this stuff. Always using that as an alibi, whether it's 9/11 or whether it's Epstein Island. That's Lucky Lutnick, the family guy. We should call him that, family guy Lucky Lutnick. So he took him there for a family vacation. I could just imagine the conversation. Hey, honey, we're going to go to Jeffrey Epstein's island. Remember that guy who lives next door to us?
The guy said was a monster that I never wanted to associate with.
The guy who creeped us out. Yeah.
We're going to his island.
Yeah, we're going to. By the way, in the interim, since we first met him, he's been convicted as a pedophile and sex offender.
You know what? We should bring the kids.
That's right. Hey, kids, we're going to go to Epstein Island. Aren't you excited? Yay. Yeah, don't leave my sight. Maybe he said that. I don't know. This is his back and forth that he had.
Secretary Lutnick, as I said in my opening statement, you led people to believe that you had cut off all contact with Jeffrey Epstein after the 2005 encounter you and your wife had in his apartment. But as I'm sure you know, the Epstein files show a very different record of interaction. Why did the Epstein files show you coordinating a meeting and planning a visit with Jeffrey Epstein on his private island in December 2012?
Thank you for the question.
I'm so happy you asked me that.
To make it clear that I met Jeffrey Epstein when I moved to a house next door to him in New York, right? And I met him then. Over the next 14 years, I met him 2 other times that I can recall. 2 times. And that is none for 6 years. So 6 years later, I met him. And then a year and a half after that, I met him, and never again. Probably the total, and you've seen all of these documents, of these millions and millions of documents, there may be 10 emails connecting me with him, probably about 10 emails connecting me with him over a 14-year period. I did not have any relationship with him. I barely had anything to do with that person.
Your boss did.
Secretary Lutnick.
Your boss did, absolutely. It continues.
I think you understand the root of concern here. It's the way you described very emphatically your first encounter with him in his apartment, said you were disgusted, would never have any contact with him again. Did you, in fact, make the visit to Jeffrey Epstein's private island?
I did have lunch with him as I was on a boat going across on a family vacation. My wife was with me, as were my 4 children and nannies. I had another couple they were there as well with their children, and we had lunch on the island. That is true, for an hour, and we left with all of my children, with my nannies and my wife, all together. We were on family vacation. We were not apart. To suggest there was anything untoward about that in 2012, I don't recall why we did it, but
Mr. Secretary, again, as I said,
I lied about it before, and I don't remember why we did it. But, Epstein Island is just great for kids. It's highly recommended. So, again...
Look, I'm sorry. It just had 5 stars on TripAdvisor. I couldn't resist.
This guy, regardless of what's going on with the sexual aspect of it, we look at the financial aspect of it, and we talked about Jeffrey Epstein's involvement in terms of, manipulating things financially for Bill Gates, and we got conspiring how they're going to get money out of the purportedly charitable institution, how they're going to turn that into a profit center, but also his involvement in the creation of Bitcoin right at the epicenter of all this stuff. And Lucky Lutnick is right at the epicenter of the crony capitalism digital currency. We have the central bank digital currency, right? CBDC. He is at the center of what the Trump administration wants to do, a crony capitalist digital currency. So you got the CBDC, everybody figured out what that was, and Europe is going to go right ahead with that. They don't care. But here in the United States, they had to rebrand it because people were angry about that. So now we got this CCDC, stablecoin and other things like that, which he is at the center of all that. That's why I believe that Trump made him the Treasury Secretary, part of this financial reset. And again, he's a grifting financial crook. No doubt about it. Just like Jeffrey Epstein. The sexual stuff and everything, that is all these things roll together. But certainly there's no question about what Larry Lutnick is up to with all this CCDC, the crony capitalist digital currency. He previously said he'd cut off contact with Epstein after 2005. Epstein pleaded guilty in 2008, so that was his cover story. He was going to be okay with that. But then this turns up in 2012, 4 years after Epstein was convicted of the sexual crimes. So again, they also had business dealings, as recently as 2014, which makes you wonder how much of Jeffrey Epstein is involved not only in Bitcoin, but also in stablecoin, also in the CCDC. Well, of course, this happened yesterday, and Caroline Levitt was asked about Lutnick in a press conference.
Thanks, Caroline. Secretary Lutnick today was testifying on the Hill, and he said that he had visited Epstein's Island in 2012 with his wife and children, and that's after he said that he had cut ties with Epstein. And Justice Department documents show that he was in contact with Epstein through 2018 over messages. So does the White House stand behind Secretary Lutnick right now, or given what he has said today, has there been any shift in how the White House is viewing Secretary Lutnick's performance?
No, Secretary Lutnick remains a very important member of President Trump's team, and the president fully supports the secretary. I will just point out that there are a lot of wins in the news this week that people in this room have not asked about, because you continue to ask questions about the same subject, so let me point them out for you.
Yeah, let us point that out for you, how you are lying to cover this up and how you really don't care. Should we believe anything she has to say about their so-called wins? You notice a reporter said 2018. This article here from CNBC said 2014. So 14, 18, he continued in contact with him. And of course, the interesting thing, we've shown this before, the fact that whenever you have reporters asking Donald Trump questions about Jeffrey Epstein, and you got Lucky Larry Lutnick in the background, he just can't stop giggling.
Thanks, Caroline.
Sorry. Here it is right here.
True. In this call,
this is it.
Some kind of gathering of top advisors this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation.
I don't know. I could ask you that question. I don't know of it, but
including fake news, want to keep something like that going. But credible information.
Yeah. Laughing Lucky Larry Lutnick. Always good for a laugh if you talk about Jeffrey Epstein. He was always good for laughs, according to people who hung out with him, right? So the Lutnick, one of the things he said was he barely had anything to do with Epstein. Barely is maybe not a word you want to use in reference to Epstein. It can have a double entendre there, I think. Anyway, he couldn't recall why he went to the island. Come on, kids, let's go to Epstein Island. It'll be great. You'll love it. But anyway, I'll show you his big temple there. You're going to like that a lot. By the way, when we look at this, Epstein's niece says, yeah, our family was part of the cult of Baal, I was told. And so, again, when you look at this, supposedly Lutnick said, well, I lived next to him. He invited us over once for coffee at noon, and we were creeped out by him. We never saw him again. And yet, if you look at the cult of Baal that is there. Again, just as a background, always would pronounce it as Baal because it's Baal. Again, an ancient Canaanite god. And of course, the Phoenicians over there, that culture and the same mythology that they had went from that area there that is now Israel all the way down into northern Africa where Carthage and the Carthaginian Empire was. And the amount of child sacrifice that was done by the Carthaginians is really, truly amazing. And they have discovered that archaeologically, the massive amount of children's bones that are there. That was a big part of it. Of course, that was Moloch as well. They had Moloch and Baal. The difference, as far as I can tell, is that, again, Ashtaroth or Asherah had the Asherah poles and things like that, the original pole dancers of thousands of years ago. It was always a fertility rite that involved prostitution and orgies and things like that. So they would have these fertility rites. And then they had their own form of abortion later, the next year. They would have the unwanted children would be sacrificed to Moloch. They called it passing them through the fire. Moloch was an idol that was a human with the head of a bull and outstretched arms and a lap and table and everything. They heat it up. They'd put the kids on that and actually then roll them into the fire. And they'd have ceremonies where they'd play drums very, very loudly to try to cover up the screams of the children. It truly is amazing. But Baal, or Baal, was connected with Ashtaroth, the fertility goddess, and he was a god of fertility as well. And so he was a little bit different in that regard. But you can see how all of these tie in to Jeffrey Epstein and the kind of things that he is now involved in. The child sacrifice, the prostitution, the rituals of sex and so forth. And this is what Jeffrey Epstein's niece had to say about Baal.
I am Jeff Epstein's niece. My father and stepmother had a baby girl in 1991 who was raised by another family. In 1998, they assigned me her birth date on my birth certificate, which they waited 10 years to file, claiming my stepmother was my biological mother, and finally put me in school in the gifted program. My parents were upstanding citizens. My father was a divorce attorney. It goes back for generations. I remember my father confessing that my oldest brother is 8 years younger than him. They told me that we belonged to the cult of Baal. My great-grandfather, according to my father, was Walt Disney. Before he moved to the United States, his name was Artur Bick. And his twin sister, who he had children with, who I am descended from, was named Minnie. That's where we get Mickey and Minnie Mouse. It's very cute, right? Except for when you consider the abuse that I suspect is still happening to children who go into the entertainment industry.
Well, again, I've never heard that about Disney before. I don't know. I can't verify that. But I can't verify any of that, but that's what she's having to say there. So you take it for what it's worth there. But it certainly does look like the same type of thing. As I said, that singularity that is there, that has always been there. Another controversial redaction in the 2014 email. One person said, "Thank you for the fun night. Your littlest girl was a little naughty." Everything in the email is readable except for the name of the sender, which is covered with 2 black bars. The email was sent 6 years after Epstein was jailed for procuring a minor for prostitution. In another 2017 email, a redacted sender emailed Epstein to say, "I met," redacted, "today. She's like Lolita from Nabokov. Femme miniature. So now I should send you her type of candidates only." That's what he had to say. So I found at least 3 very good young poor girls, but was so tired I will cover this next week. Meet this one. Not the beauty queen, but we both likes her a lot. I mean, this person who's writing this sounds like Gollum. We likes her a lot. Yes, we do. Anyway, the files also contained a draft indictment from 20 years ago that was drawn up before the sweetheart deal that was given to him by the prosecutor that Trump made his head of the Department of Labor. I mean, the connections to Trump just go and go and go, don't they? 56-page draft indictment listed 3 people as co-conspirators. There's also a chart in the original indictment showing Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, but there were 4 other people who were redacted, 3 employees and a girlfriend, quote unquote. Of the girlfriend, the chart says, unknown if she actually recruited or abused any of the victims. She was rumored to be Epstein's sex slave, and victims often described someone fitting her description as being involved in the sexual abuse during these massages, quote unquote. Says one of the employees, unknown if she was directly responsible for recruiting girls, but at least 10 girls say that she was the direct point of contact for scheduling their massage appointments. The unnamed person wrote that, quote, she wants the job badly, but not as pretty as some of the other applicants, but she is willing to do anything you ask her. Another one says, well, unfortunately, she's not very young, but she is beautiful. So maybe you still might like her. In 2013 email, a modeling agency in Paris said a new Brazilian just arrived, sexy and cute, 19 years old. The same year, a person whose name was redacted sent Epstein a photograph of a woman in a SpaceX suit. This is kind of like what Thomas Massey was saying. We got all these billionaires who are pointing the finger like the multiple Spider-Men saying, it was you, right? That's what Musk is doing. Another email from 2018. This is my favorite from Lithuania. The name was redacted. 19, will meet when I am there. And so Jeffrey Epstein responded and says, full name, Instagram. In other words, I'll find her for you. On February 2nd, 2015, another redacted associate wrote to Epstein that they were getting hate letters after reports in the press. Being called a sexual pervert, he said, is no fun. They were written to Epstein. Said the key are the 14 to 15-year-old girls. I'm now a sexual pervert because I say they are now of reproductive age, ? This sounds a lot like Alan Dershowitz. Sounds like Megyn Kelly, as a matter of fact. But we do know that Alan Dershowitz actually wrote op-ed pieces arguing that that should be the age of consent, 14 to 15 years old. And he had a lot of people who called him a pervert for that as well. The letter, and we don't know who wrote this, I do hope there is no legal jeopardy for you in this new flurry of activity. Again, the writer is concerned about legal jeopardy. He said, my heart goes out to you, brother. Being called a sexual pervert is no fun. Less so if you have served time for the crime, as I have not. But they're calling me one merely for not urging your death by beheading. Does sound like a guy who was his lawyer. Anyway, the person added, we'll be back in touch. Hope you're fine and more than well protected. Ro Khanna said there was no explanation as to why these names were redacted. He added, our law is very clear. Unless something was classified, it is required to be unredacted. So in other words, they left a big loophole there for classification. But the only thing other than that was supposed to be victims' names. Everything else was supposed to be left alone. So clearly we know that they're not complying either with the spirit or the letter of the law. And that should not surprise us. We are, after all, talking about the Trump administration. Well, Lutwin Milankovic, thank you for the tip. He says, rolling, and he has gifted 5 subs on Rumble. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yep, thank you. We're
going to take a quick break, folks, and we will be right back.
Real quickly before we do, though, I all should get excited because we have Gerald Celente coming up in 15 minutes.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that we've got Gerald coming up. I didn't announce it before, but yes, Gerald will be joining us. I'm going to do a really quick break here because I want to talk about AI, and we'll talk about AI with Gerald Celente. He's got...
And 10% off the Trends Journal with promo code NIGHT.
Yes. Thank you, Travis. Thank you for keeping me on target here. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Elvis.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
And the sweet sounds of Motown. Find them on the Oldies channel at apsradio.com.
All right, welcome back. I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as I can, but it's a very interesting op-ed piece by someone named Matt Schumer. He said something big is happening, and he begins by talking about COVID. He said, if you'd heard rumors about something that was happening overseas, and you're watching the Chinese locking down, all this kind of stuff, he goes, if you started stockpiling toilet paper and a bunch of other stuff, people are going to say, well, you've been hanging out in the weird corners of the internet. But he goes, something much bigger than that is happening right now. And that's my concern about this, especially as I read this. That's why what I said at the beginning of the program. You look at the few people that are controlling this and the direction that they want to take it. These are the same people that are all over these Epstein files. These satanic pedophile elites. They're the ones who are running AI. That should scare you as not just a technological issue. You know, it's like the other day when we're talking about Epstein's involvement with Bitcoin. And one person said, well, you know, people just look at this and say, the code is open source. You can look at it. You can see there's no shenanigans there. And it's like, it's not about that. It's about all the stuff surrounding it and how they elevated that, pushed other things to the side, how they made connections with the on-ramps and the off-ramps and other issues like that. It's everything, the entire infrastructure that surrounded it, how they manipulated that. That's what you need to take a look at. That will tell you how this thing is crooked. And if you look at what's going on with AI, that should really cause a lot of concern. He said, I tell this, so I'm around my friends, my family. He says, people I care about, they keep asking me, so what's going on with AI? What's the big deal with it? He says, I've spent 6 years building an AI startup, so they think I know. And he says, I do know, but I sound like a nut if I tell them what's really going on with this stuff. So he said, I keep giving them the polite version, but it just doesn't do justice to what is actually happening. He said, so the cocktail party version, because the honest version sounds like I've lost my mind. I told myself that was a good enough reason to keep what's truly happening to myself, but the gap between what I've been saying and what is actually what I've been saying and what is actually happening is now far too big. The people I care about deserve to hear what is coming, even if it sounds crazy. Even though I work in AI, I have almost no influence about what is about to happen. And neither does the vast majority of the industry. The future is being shaped by a remarkably small number of people. As a matter of fact, the people who work for Anthropic that does Claude and some of these other things, there was an interesting article. Several people were interviewed that work there at that company, and they said, guy says, I feel like I'm showing up every day to put myself out of a job. You know, kind of like the people that are working at Disney who were told that they need to train their H-1B visa replacements from India. And so that's really what we're looking at here. He said, most of us who work in AI are building on top of foundations that we didn't lay. We are watching this unfold the same as you. It just happened to be close enough to feel the ground shake first. But it's time now. Not in an eventually we should talk about this way. He said, this is happening right now, and I need you to understand it right now. He said, here's the thing. Nobody outside of tech quite understands yet. The reason so many people in the industry are sounding the alarm right now is because this already happened to us. We're not making predictions. We're telling you what already occurred in our own jobs, and we're warning you that you're next. Like I said, the people who are speaking out called up futurism from Anthropic and said, you know, this is crazy what's happening here. We're building systems that are going to be used to replace all of us. So for years, AI has been improving steadily. There were big jumps here and there, but each big jump was spaced out enough so that you could absorb it as they came. Then in 2025, new techniques for building these models unlocked a much faster pace of progress. Then it got even faster, then faster again. And each new model wasn't just better than the last, it was better by a wide margin. And the time between each new model release was shorter. I was using AI more and more, going back and forth with it less and less, watching it handle things I used to think required my expertise. Remember, I talked about the software engineer, very experienced. He actually works as a consultant. And he said, the dangerous thing, he said, I just pull myself back and just let it write all the code. And he said, the bad thing was it came up with something that I really couldn't even maintain and really couldn't adequately test. I didn't know what the architecture was with it. And he said, in just a short period of time, a few months, my own skills started to get weaker. And people are talking about this in terms of medical aspects as well. That kind of atrophy of just pulling back. He says, then on the 5th of February this year, 2 major AI labs released new models on the same day. GPT 5.3 Codex from OpenAI and Opus 4.6 from Anthropic, the makers of Claude. Something clicked, not just a light switch. It's more like the moment you realize that the water has been rising around you and now it is up to your chest. I'm no longer needed for the actual technical work of my job, he said. I describe what I want built in plain English, and it just appears. Not a rough draft that I need to fix, the finished thing. I tell AI what I want, I walk away from the computer for 4 hours, and I come back to find that the work is done, that it's done well, that it's done better than I would have done it myself, and with no corrections needed. He says, a couple of months ago, I was going back and forth with AI, guiding it, making edits. Now I just describe the outcome and leave. He said, I'll tell the AI, I want to build this app. Here's what it should do. Here's roughly what it should look like. Figure out the user flow, the design, and all of it. And it does it. It writes tens of thousands of lines of code. Then, and this is the part that would have been unthinkable even a year ago, it opens up the app itself. It clicks through the buttons. It tests the features. It uses the app the way a person would. If it doesn't like how something looks or feels, it goes back and changes it on its own. It iterates like a developer would, fixing and refining until it is satisfied. Only once it has decided that the app meets its own standards does it come back to me and say, it's ready for you to test. And when I test it, it's usually perfect, he says. I'm not exaggerating. He says, that is what my Monday looked like this week. But it was the model that was released last week that shook me the most, the GPT 5.3 Codex. It wasn't just executing my instructions, it was making intelligent decisions. It had something that felt for the first time like judgment, like taste, the inexplicable sense of knowing what the right call is that people always said AI would never have. This model has it, for something close enough that the distinction is starting to not matter. I've always been early to adopt AI tools, but the last few months have shocked me. These new AI models aren't incremental improvements. This is a different thing entirely. And this is why this matters to you, even if you don't work in tech. The AI labs made a deliberate choice. They focused on AI, making AI great at writing tools to write code first. Because building AI requires a lot of code. And if AI can write that code, it can help build the next version of itself, a smarter version that writes better code, which builds an even smarter version. Making AI great at coding was a strategy that unlocks everything else. That's why they did it first. My job changing before yours, not because they were targeting software engineers. It was just a side effect of where they chose to start first. They've done it, and they are moving on to everything else. The experience that tech workers have had over the past year of watching AI go from helpful tool to it does my job better than I do is the experience that everyone else is about to have. In law, in finance, in medicine, in accounting, in consulting, in writing, in design, in analysis, in customer service. Not in 10 years. The people building these systems say 1 to 5. Some say less. And given what I've seen in just the last couple of months, I think less is more likely. He says, but I hear people say all the time, but I tried AI and it wasn't that good. He said, I hear that constantly, and I know why people say that. He said, this is evolving so rapidly that unless you're using the very latest stuff, you don't realize just how much it has changed. If you're using something that's months old, he said, a lot of the stuff that's free is years old. So he says, that is ancient history. He said, part of the problem is people are using the free AI versions. He said, I think of a friend of mine who's a lawyer. I keep telling him to try using AI at his firm, and he keeps finding reasons that it won't work. It's not built for his specialty, or it made an error when he tested it, or it doesn't understand the nuance of what he does. I get it. But I've had partners at major law firms reach out to me for advice because they've tried the current versions, and they see where this is going. One of them, the managing partner at a large firm, spends hours every day using AI. He told me it's like having a team of associates available instantly. He's not using it because it's a toy. He's using it because it works. And he told me something that stuck with me. He said, every couple of months, he said, it gets significantly more capable for his work. He said, if it stays on this trajectory, he expects it'll be able to do most of what he does before long. He said, the people who are ahead in their industries, the ones who are actually experimenting seriously, are not dismissing this. They are blown away by what it can already do, and they are positioning themselves accordingly. He said, let me make the pace of improvement concrete, because I think this is the part that's the hardest to believe if you're not watching it closely. In 2022, AI couldn't do basic arithmetic reliably. It couldn't confidently tell you that 7 times 8 is 54. He said, by 2023, it could pass the bar exam. By 2024, it could write working software, and it could explain graduate-level science. So by late 2025, some of the best engineers in the world said they had handed over most of their coding work to AI. On February the 5th, 2026, new models arrived that made everything before them feel like a different era. If you haven't tried AI in the last few months, what exists today would be unrecognizable to you. There's an organization called Meter, M-E-T-R, that actually measures this with data. They track the length of real-world tasks, measured by how long they take a human expert and how long a model can complete it successfully, end-to-end without human help. About a year ago, the answer was roughly 10 minutes. Then it was an hour, then several hours. The most recent measurement, Claude Opus 4.5, from November, shows that AI completing the tasks that can take a human expert nearly 5 hours. That number is doubling approximately every 7 months, with recent data suggesting it may be accelerating to as fast as every 4 months. That's the key thing, and we cover this a lot. As a matter of fact, there's some articles about Johnson & Johnson's subsidiary that was using an assistant machine to do some sinus surgery to assist the physician in terms of guiding him, looking inside the nose as he's doing it and guiding him. And they've had some notable failures in this. In a couple of cases, they cut a carotid artery and caused people to have serious strokes. And so that's gotten a lot of attention. People are saying, well, we just don't have enough testing of these things, as if the FDA ever really tested drugs or machinery and that kind of stuff. But those types of failures get a lot of attention, and they should get a lot of attention. The attention that we give to the self-driving cars when they do crazy and stupid things. The bottom line is, though, how rapidly this is changing, how unbelievably rapidly it is changing. And I get this from Lance, who works with it a good bit of the time. He's telling me every week, it's like, this model over here updated, now it does this and this. And we're using it mainly for image generation or something like that. We put together some things that we use on the show. And it is amazing how rapidly that is evolving as well. But it's a big issue. And as we pointed out before, when you got the Department of Transportation coming in and telling people, we're going to have AI write the regulations. They can do what takes you guys months or years. They can do it in just a few minutes or seconds. And so he says, we're going to flood the zone with regulations, as if we needed more regulations. And it reminded me, one of the things that we were always told as engineers is that you got good, fast, and cheap. Pick any two. That's as good as you're going to do. You can go good and fast, but you're not going to go cheap. Or you can go fast and cheap, but you're not going to get good. And that's what he was saying. We don't really care. We just want to flood the zone with regulations. And so that's the real issue that is there. And as you see these massive numbers of layoffs from Amazon, 16,000 people laid off and that type of thing for this. A lot of these people don't really care if they replace the humans who are costing them a lot of money with AI, and the AI doesn't do as good a job. They feel that it's going to get to that point pretty quickly, and they want to start saving the money right now because that's all that really matters to them. But I think the worst case scenario that we should all be very concerned about is the government, the surveillance, the police state, the war state, and how they're going to use AI and robotics in that. Stealth Patriot, thank you very much for the tip. He said, did you hear that the FAA shut down the airspace over El Paso for the next 10 days? No explanation given except for national security. Yeah, that's the explanation for everything they do that is hidden from us, isn't it? I didn't hear that, and I have no idea. I can't think what that would be in El Paso. We'll ask Gerald Celente about it because we're going to talk about the massive...
They've apparently lifted them now, but they didn't give any reason for why they put them on and no reason for why they lifted them.
Is there a big base there or something like that? Air base around there?
Probably, given the fact that
they are moving a lot of men and material and all that kind of stuff. There was something like 100 C-17s or something transferring stuff. But they're not really making a secret out of that, so I don't know why they would classify that. Even to the extent that Trump is bragging about sending a second aircraft carrier group close to Iran. They're getting very, very close to striking and starting the war that Israel has wanted. Netanyahu, especially for over 30 years. We'll talk to Gerald about that.
It looks like people are saying in chat that it was threats from Mexican cartels. We'll have to check that out about El Paso. Real quickly, I've said this before, but to me, AI is going to be its scariest when it's the most efficient. When this thing is 99.99999% accurate and they just turn it loose on whatever system, and there's not going to be much oversight at all because they're going to trust it. It's going to be...
The danger is us trusting it.
It's going to be better and more accurate than the average person at some point.
And the danger is we can see with Doge, we can see how he was using it to audit. And we've seen how Trump used it to audit his political enemies, Lisa Cook and Letitia James, who I have absolutely, I can't stand Letitia James. However, when you look at the way they audited their real estate history and did it very quickly, that's the kind of malicious ways that AI can be used. It can be used to audit each and every one of us because it's not just limited to his political enemies. It's going to be really, really oppressive surveillance state.
We now have Gerald, so it is time for a break.
Okay, let's take a quick break and we'll get Gerald Celente on. We'll be right back, folks.
Decoding the mainstream propaganda. It's the David Knight Show.
And welcome back. Joining us now is Gerald Celente. It's always great to have Gerald on and his excellent publication, Trends Journal at trendsjournal.com. You can save 10% with the code NIGHT. And I've got it right here in front of me on this device here. 4 AI giants. This is his top news story as well. 4 AI giants announced $660 billion in 2026 capital costs. That's $500 billion, a little bit more than $500 billion. So Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, that's not even including Anthropic, which has been very, very successful, has some very, very powerful software that's out there. So what's happening, Gerald? I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time. I've not really been in tune to how quickly this stuff is accelerating. And I just read an op-ed piece from a guy who is a software consultant, and he was talking about how incredibly fast the pace of acceleration is on this and how they're replacing software engineers on it. Because they're doing that first so they can evolve this more quickly into every other field.
There's 2 elements to this that are very important. One is the one you're talking about, and the other is what's happening to these companies that are going to use software companies that you're not going to need anymore. And you're seeing the effects starting to hit Wall Street like they did last week. So a lot of these software companies, they're going to be useless because AI is taking over. That's going to bring down the equity markets big time. Number two, who's going to lead the world in AI?
Yeah.
The Chinese.
Yeah.
The business of America's war, the business of China's business. Again, we only go by the facts. I've mentioned this a dozen times on your show.
But it'd be very easy for them to repurpose this stuff into war as well. When we look at the new tools of war, whether it's autonomous killing machines like drones or whatever, or robotics. I mean, they're way ahead in terms of robotics in China.
Way ahead. So the thing is, again, as I said, when Bill Clinton, before Bill Clinton let China come into the World Trade Organization 25 years ago, only 10% of Chinese 18-year-olds went to college. Today, nearly 70%. And China's investing very heavily in AI. In America, you go to college to get a degree in transgender studies or something, you know. They're doing it different in China. They're going there to learn more about, you know, what in the world is going on and how they could profit from it.
But even if you get a degree in computer engineering or software engineering or electrical engineering or whatever, in many cases, what we're hearing now is that this whole thing's been turned upside down. Your double E degree or your computer software degree is about as useful as a political science degree or basket weaving degree when I was going to school. So people are getting out. They said, we can't get the entry-level positions because they can already use AI for the entry-level positions, you know, going in and testing the software. They've already got AI agents that will do that type of thing.
Exactly. So this AI is going to bring down the world in a number of ways. Again, one of my sayings is they say the meek shall inherit the earth. I said they misspelt it in the King James Bible. The geeks have inherited the earth.
Yeah.
Now let's look at another aspect of this. You're seeing what's happening in the equity markets. You're seeing the money that they're spending and the losses that are happening because these software companies are going to go out of business. What's going to happen in San Francisco? What do they have, a vacancy rate now? Probably about 35% office vacancy rate. That's going to get a lot worse all over the country.
Yeah.
And again, nobody's talking about the office vacancy rates. Officially, in the United States, they're about a little over 20% vacant. Nobody there. Go to Castle Systems. The last number I saw, KASTLE, the office occupancy rate in the United States is 48%. Just talking to my buddy in Chicago, he has about 70 not buildings, but apartments that he rents, buildings that he owns. He said downtown Chicago is dead. And I lived in Chicago for a number of years, 7 years. And this guy's a real cat. And he said downtown is dead. Dead. The damage that the COVID war has done is incalculable.
Yes.
Incalculable. Again, we're talking about young people again. They're all addicted. AI, high-tech addicted. They're not going out dancing anymore. They're all phone. But anyway, going back to this whole AI thing, going back and putting all this AI and high-tech, look at how people aren't going out to eat anymore and they're getting food delivered.
Yeah. Absolutely. Or even if they go out, there was an article that I had, I talked to David Bonson about that. It was an article from The Atlantic that went viral. The person was complaining, said, you know, since COVID, people don't even go, if they go to the restaurant, they don't stay there to eat. They walk up to the counter and get a brown bag and take it out. You know, everybody is just isolated anymore. So again, you're taking this whole high-tech AI, the whole world is changing in front of our eyes. Again, we have forecasted one of the top trends for 2026 is .com bust 2.0. You're seeing it happening already with these software companies going out of business and AI taking over what they don't need to do anymore. And number two
is that China's going to lead the world in AI, and they've overinvested in these companies.
Mm-hmm.
Trends are born.
You see it in
they grow.
You see it in
the
you see it in the stock market, for example, the consolidation. You know, most of the stocks are not doing very well. It's all focused on just a few companies. And it's going to become more and more that way, isn't it? You know, just a few people doing it. Like this guy who was a software engineer, he said, look, I'm talking about this because I've got an AI startup and we see this stuff first. But he goes, we didn't build the foundation on this, and the things that are changing underneath us are changing so rapidly, and we don't have any control over where this is going either. It's just a few people, and it's just a few companies that are doing this. That's the other thing, that concentration of wealth that is there.
You and I are old enough to remember the beginning of the internet revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember all the computer companies that came out?
Oh, yeah.
And then what happened? Just a couple took over.
Mm-hmm.
They were loaded. And then all of a sudden, Apple, Microsoft, couple of companies took over everything.
Mm-hmm.
Dell. There were so many, and that's what's going to happen. There's going to be more and more consolidation.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you're looking at this country, here, what was the big news last week in the business section? Oh, Walmart's now worth $1 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
11,000 stores. Go back to when you and I were young guys. There were hardware stores, stationery stores, shoe stores, drug stores, hardware stores, stores,
Yeah.
mom and pops, all
That's right.
gone.
Yeah.
Gone. The bigs own everything.
Yeah.
They own everything. This is not a democracy or a republic. By the words of this cat by the name of Mussolini, the merger of state and corporate powers is called fascism.
Mm-hmm.
And it's right in front of everybody's eyes.
And people
Right in
don't
front
even
of
get that.
everybody's eyes.
People don't even understand that. I talked this week about a ridiculous headline that I saw on Zero Hedge, and it was an op-ed piece from somebody named Jenna. And she was saying, if you're allowed to criticize them, it's not fascism. I said, she doesn't even understand the difference between the economic system and authoritarianism. And of course, we are headed down in authoritarianism. That's one of the articles that you got, the coming ice age, of tyranny that's there. But you've also got an article in Trends Research about young people see 60% jump in psychotic disorders in the last 30 years, as a study. And again, part of this, in your article, you talk about psychosis and the psychosis. Well, that's not being able to tell reality from your fantasies, right? And that's really kind of where we are. You know, what's real and what isn't real. And people can't distinguish the fantasy world from reality anymore. And it's getting worse and worse as we become more and more online, as we become more and more isolated from everybody. It's this consolidation, this isolation, and it's the pace of change. Somebody had a comment the other day. They said that AI is bothering everybody, not so much because it's AI. It's bothering them because the pace of change is so disruptive to everybody's lives.
But again, look what the internet, again, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Yeah, yeah.
Look at, let's go back again. And when you look at the article, yes, it's changed over the last 30 years, but it accelerated since the COVID war.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what happened. So now I'm a young kid, right? And we're back in the day, after school, come home at 3 o'clock. Mom, going out. Make sure you're home at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's when we all used to sit down and have dinner, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Not where you're going, what you're doing. Again, I should have been dead 100 times. But anyway, you're a kid. Now what happened? COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Stay in your house.
Yeah.
You can't go out. You can't go swimming. You can't play ball. You can't do this. You can't do that. Get back in your house.
Yeah.
All right? You're a young kid. You want to go out and play, have a good time. No, you can't. Oh, you're a politician. You do what I tell you to do. I'm Godson Gavin Newsom, a rich king who plays to be poor. I tell you what to do is I'm partying up in the French Laundry.
That's right.
All right? They destroyed the lives of these kids. They destroyed them.
Mm-hmm.
They're all screwed up. Yeah, again, Back in the day, used to go out, they used to have go out dancing. Nobody's going out dancing anymore. They're on their phone.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's gone. This COVID thing, the damage it's done is incalculable, and no one talks about it.
That's right.
No one.
That's right.
No one. What they've done, they've destroyed the lives and livelihoods of billions of people across the globe. Again, we only put the facts in there. It was launched on Chinese New Year, the year of the rat in 2020.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
You know why? Because there were protests going on in Hong Kong. I used to be on Hong Kong TV when all this was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Hong Kong, a city of 7.5 million people. Over 1 million people were taking to the streets to stop the Chinese from taking over.
Yeah.
Because the deal they did when finally the UK gave it up, that Hong Kong was supposed to be independent politically for 40 years. The Chinese were taking over. The Hong Kong people didn't want it to stop. They wanted freedom. The Chinese could not stop it. They launched the COVID war. You can't go out. Get back in your house. They overtook Hong Kong.
Yeah, I remember
Again,
that. Yeah.
Again, only the facts. You know what one of our top trends for 2020 was? New World Disorder. Again, we put those out in the end of December back then, and COVID war starts early January.
Mm-hmm.
There were protests going on South America, Chile, Bolivia, Colombia, Argentina, Lebanon, South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
the French yellow vests, people
right.
all over the world, India, the farmers' protest, lockdown. There were protests going on all over the world because of people's lack of basic living standards,
Mm-hmm.
crime, government corruption, and violence. COVID happened. Get back in your house. Get back in your house. You can't go out.
Yep.
Everybody forgets this. And again, I talked about the office building bust. Again, your vacancy rate now, it used to be about 9%. Now it's over 20%.
Mm-hmm.
They can't pay their debt on the offices that they own. The people aren't going back to work. Again, now you go back to the other data. Let's go back to China. China, with all booms, there's a bust. They overbuilt the place. You have over 90 million vacant apartments in China.
Wow.
90 million.
Wow.
The middle class has shrunk. Look at luxury goods. Oh, all the sales are down. Wonder why? Because the Chinese were going out all over Europe, all over Asia. They were buying, they were booming. They locked down the place, zero COVID policy for 3 years. The middle class is dead in China now. The young people can't find jobs. The apartment vacancy rates, as I mentioned, on and on and on. And this is going on around the world that nobody's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The damage that this COVID war has done is incalculable.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And it was a war. You're absolutely right to call it a war. You've always said when people lose everything, they lose it, and then they take us to war, right? And
That's
as you
right.
point out, they had all these different places all over the world. People are pushing back. All of a sudden, they lock everything down. I remember when this first began, I noticed that, well, wait a minute, they're talking about people getting sick from bat soup and all this other things. It wouldn't have anything to do with the fact that their only biosafety level 4 lab is right there where the wet market is. And so I thought at the very beginning in December, I thought, well, maybe this is something real. Then I started seeing how they were locking people inside their apartments. I mean, they go out and drill a hole in the concrete right in front of their door and put an iron rod in it so you can't open the door. And then I saw the people who were falling down in the streets, young people, and it was obviously fake. I mean, it's like watching a really bad actor in a movie trying to take a fall. It was almost comical. And so it's like, okay, wait a minute. I know what this is about. This is looking like Dark Winter that they practiced 2 months before 9/11. So I caught on really early to the gag, but they were still able to lock everybody down. And and so again, that should really concern us about what is coming next, because they've not talked about, there's been no accountability for anybody. They instead get together and talk about what they're going to do the next time. Next time we're going to do it better. We tried to do the best we could, and we didn't get everybody locked down as soon as possible, but we're going to do a much better job the next time. And so that really should concern us. But also the fever, the war fever that you see everywhere in the U.S. as well as Europe. Everybody wants a world war. And that's the other way that they get us under control.
Yep. Again, you look at the facts. They destroy the global economy. And then when all else fails, they take you to war. And look at Germany. Germany's in a recession for 2 years. Third largest economy in the world. Largest in Europe. Oh, our economy grew 0.3%, 0.2% last year. You're in a recession 3 years. They're spending $1 trillion to build up their defense and the infrastructure that can hold the tanks, all right? France, UK, one country after another building up their military. We have to fight those Russians. Yeah, they only killed 27 million of them in World War II, right? I forgot.
That's right.
Yeah. And again, this is serious what's going on. And now Netanyahu is in America telling Trump what to do. And are they going to invade? If we go to war against Iran, it's going to be the beginning of the end of life on earth.
Yeah.
Iran is a nation of 91 million people. These are the Persians. They're very advanced scientifically, technologically, and militarily. Israel is a country of 7 million people. You don't have to be good at math to figure this out.
Yeah, that's right.
Israel says if they feel like they're losing, they're going to implement the Samson option, SAMSON, which means they're going nuclear. They have between 200 to 400 nuclear warheads.
Yeah. And of course, Trump is, we kind of thought he was going to do it a little while ago, but he's still now talking about sending a second aircraft carrier group there. We got information about 100 C-17 planes, big cargo planes taking personnel and material at the same time. I mean, they're ramping this up big time. And I think one of the interesting things is he's believing his own press release. He goes down to Venezuela and he kidnaps a guy. Now he thinks he can take on the world. It's crazy.
Oh, look what we're doing to Cuba. Look at how the people are starving. What the hell have the Cubans ever done to us?
Yeah.
What have the Cubans ever done to America?
Right. Yeah. It's just, it's amazing.
Oh, I forgot. Marco Rubio, a little gutless little clown boy. I forgot. Oh, who Trump made fun of back in 2016 when he was running for president. Remember?
Yeah.
Put his arm around little Marco. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Now our Secretary of State. How about our Secretary of Crap?
Well, Cuba, Gerald, embarrassed us in the CIA with a Bay of Pigs, so we got to get even with them. They got to get that score settled. I mean, we still wound up keeping a military base there on their country. So how much of a threat could they actually be to us, as you point out? But they are an embarrassment to the U.S. And I know I grew up in Florida. There's a lot of people there that hated Cuba because the communists came in and stole their stuff and ran them out. They had to leave, or they're going to go to political prison. So there were a lot of people that I knew, kids my age whose parents came from Cuba, and they really hated Cuba. But that's because they lost a lot of stuff there. But again, they're not a threat to us, as you point out.
No,
they're a
it's
threat
none
to
of
themselves.
my business.
Yeah, they're a threat to themselves.
Yeah, it's none of my business.
That's right.
Again, I launched Occupy Peace, as you know. You were kind enough, you and your family, coming up here to speak. It's not my business. I'm an American. I believe in founding fathers like George Washington. Don't get involved in these foreign entanglements. This stuff's been going on for centuries, and it's none of our business.
That's right.
Yeah. But here's the news, all right? Go to CNN. Guthrie mystery. Suspect released. I'm innocent.
Yeah, I haven't even covered that this week. It's,
wait. That's BBC. Police release man detained in connection to Nancy Guthrie disappearance. This is the major news.
Yeah, this is BBC telling us about this crime story in America. Yeah, it's a tragedy for their family, but it's not really relevant, is it?
Yeah. Person released after questioning as search for Nancy Guthrie continues. CNN. Nancy Guthrie case. Person released as search for, quote, armed individual, end quote, continues. ABC. Reuters. shadowy video. First known arrest mark breaks in Nancy Guthrie abduction. Reuters. All right? Terrible what happened. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, how about Rob Reiner? I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
This is the crap. This is the stuff. Oh, how many Palestinians they killed yesterday?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, shut the hell up, you anti-Semite. We can kill all the Palestinians we want. Oh, how many people they killed in Lebanon yesterday, 2 days ago?
Mm-hmm.
We could bomb anywhere we want.
That's right.
None of this is news.
That's right.
None of this is news. This is how they get the people's minds off what's really going on. These are the headline stories.
Or they brag about the fact that they just blew up a boat off the coast of Venezuela or something. I'm so sick and tired of seeing that. I don't even go to the Breitbart website anymore. They disgust me. It's always cheerleading this kind of stuff. And it's like, are you kidding me? This is not, it's immoral. It's illegal by every legal standard what's being done now. It even violates the Pentagon's own rules. But
how
they
about
brag
Fox?
about it.
How about Newsmax?
Yeah.
How about all of this crap? Oh, how about MSNBC, or whatever they call it now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you go, oh, this is what I like. I only listen to this. Oh, this is what I like. I only listen to that. My mind is that big.
Yeah, that's right.
Again, this is the stuff. I just read you the headlines.
Mm-hmm.
As the world is going to crap in front of our eyes, this is hey, did Taylor Swift get laid last night? I forgot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, your headline there about Germany. Germany has lost more than $1 trillion in GDP output since the COVID war. 70% of Germans disapprove of Fred Mertz. It's going to be hard to sell I Love Lucy reruns there, right?
Yeah.
But they're going to have some explaining to do, I think, as to what they did.
This is the propaganda.
Yeah.
This is from The Hill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Headline: Search for Savannah Guthrie's mother captivates an alarmed nation. The disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Today Show host anchor Savannah Guthrie, has left much of the country on edge. We're on edge, right? We're all on edge about this.
Yeah, that's right. I check my news all the time to see if there's an update.
Yeah. If somebody kills your brother, sister, aunt, uncle, friend, who cares? Hey, you're a nobody. You're just a little guinea from the Bronx. Shut the hell up, all right? Hey, I'm a celebrity. Oh, Rob Ryan. I can't.
Yeah, that reminds me of,
I'm dead. You go to hell, celebrity. I'm dead. I'm up in heaven. Oh, yeah, Rob Reiner went to heaven. That's right in the good book. I just forgot. We'll make up any crap we want.
Yeah, you're talking about how people don't care when it happens to ordinary people. I think of Trump and his massive lawsuits. You see, he's got yet another one. This one's only $5 billion. He's got. I totaled it up. He's got all these different lawsuits. BBC, Wall Street Journal, $10 billion here, $10 billion there. He's got another one for $15 billion. Altogether, he's got $50 billion in lawsuits, Gerald. It's absolutely amazing. And, he's upset, and rightfully so. They leaked some of his information. I talked about this yesterday. Yeah, they did it to Ken Griffin, who had a net worth of $30 billion, and they leaked his information. He sued him, but not for a lot of money. He just wanted a retraction. He wanted some other things to have happen. Trump is out there to line his pockets with this stuff. And as president, he has the authority to do something about it. As a matter of fact, the leak from the IRS happened while he was president. But, if they go on to Mar-a-Lago and do a search there, he's going to sue him. And he's going to write a check for himself. And he's going to tell the Department of Justice not to push back against his lawsuit. Just set this one out. I'm going to write a check to myself for billions of dollars. This is a guy who had his entire family's net worth was like $3 billion. And for each one of these things, he wants $10 billion. What a crook. Just amazing to me. And he doesn't fix anything. He just wants compensation for himself.
Oh, no, don't you listen to him. He just said, we had, under his administration, we had the best economy in the history of America. Some words to that effect.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of what we've seen. We knew that the tariffs were a tax. Everybody's known it's a tax. If you raise the cost to businesses, they have to pass that on eventually. They may try to swallow it for a while. But now you've had some studies come out saying, well, it's about $1,000 per person for this last year.
Yep.
And for next year, it'll be about $1,300 per person. And he doesn't care at all about America. It's just him and his friends. Just take a look at what happened with the soybean farmers, right? He comes after China, and they'd already done it in his first administration, retaliated against the farmers by not buying their products. So what was his response? He's going to help out his friend Javier Milei in Argentina, going to give him $20 billion, going to arrange another $20 billion in loan for him. And so the other people say, hey, wait a minute, what about us? Well, we'll give you 12, but not yet. And so he announced that he was going to do it, and then he didn't do anything about it. Then they announced it again in December. They still haven't done anything to help the people that are bearing the brunt of his trade policies that are there. And did you see what Mike Johnson is doing about the tariff stuff? He's saying that he's going to shut down any bills from Congress that try to take back the power to tax from the president who usurped it. And he said, well, we're not going to count any of the days. Basically, they're just going to ignore all the days between February the 10th and the end of July and say those days don't exist. I mean, it's the most absurd thing I've ever seen in my life. I can't even figure out what the supposed rationale for that is or how that even works. But he's now denying that the Earth is going to turn for the next 6 months or so. It's the extent that these guys will go to for whatever agenda that Trump wants is beyond belief.
There's a freak show.
It is. It's amazing.
And the freaks are running the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a Gallup poll. American optimism slumps to record low. All right.
Yeah.
Again, this thing is very serious. What's going on? Again, you're talking about the AI. This is so important. Again, they're way over investing in this stuff. They're going deep in debt. Oh, by the way, you're seeing a lot of investments leaving the country and going into Asian markets, by the way.
Yeah. I saw that on Trends Journal that they're telling people stay out of the dollar, avoid the dollar at all costs. So what do you think is going to happen with gold and silver?
Oh, it's going to...
Another big year for it?
Yeah. We could see it. Last year, I had forecast that gold would hit $5,000 an ounce by the end of 2025. I was 23 days off. It hit $5,000 an ounce on January 23rd. JP Morgan Chase said gold will hit $5,000 an ounce by the fourth quarter of 2026.
Yeah, that's right.
So don't listen to me. Listen to JP Morgan.
Yeah.
It's the death of the dollar.
Yep.
We're at $38 trillion in debt. It's going toward $39 trillion, I think, by the middle of next month.
Wow. Yeah.
So $38 trillion.
I looked at the rate they're accumulating it, and assuming that there's not some new program from Trump, which is not a good assumption, probably will be between now and then, we'll hit 40 by September, $40 trillion in debt by September.
So they're going to do everything they can to lower interest rates because the interest that they have to pay on this debt with high interest rates is making a bad situation terrible. And by the way, when you put in Social Security and other government expenditures, it's way over that number.
Oh, yeah.
They say it's over 100 trillion.
Yeah.
The world has had enough of America's geopolitical and economic hegemony. The death of the dollar is before us. So again, when they lower interest rates, the deeper the dollar falls. The deeper the dollar falls, the higher gold prices rise. Now let's go back to 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, when they announced they were going to bring this guy Warshin.
Yeah. Yeah, he married the heiress of the Estee Lauder fortune. I joked, I said, yeah, they're going to try to put lipstick on a pig here.
Yeah. And what was the news? The reason why the silver and gold went down so sharply was because he's not going to lower interest rates.
Right. You don't believe that, do you?
Well, again, we only put the facts in the magazine. and we had put in one quote after another how Trump liked him because he's going to lower interest rates, and how he said interest rates are basically too high, words to that effect, don't want to be sued. So he's very, he's going to lower interest rates. He doesn't get in until May if they confirm him in the Senate. But they're going to lower interest rates. Again, they're going to do everything they can to prop up the dollar. By the way, the numbers came out for new job. They said 130,000 jobs were created. That's a lot of baloney. They keep reducing these numbers every time they come out with new numbers. So the numbers are way too high. They didn't create all that jobs because you go into the magazine and you look at all the failures of job numbers that came out over the last couple of weeks. They're terrible.
Yeah. And we've seen this for administration after administration. They always do that in terms of the numbers. They put out numbers that make this quarter look really good, and then they revise them the next quarter to make that quarter look good, and say, oh, yeah, we're lying to you. It really wasn't that good when we did it last quarter. They do that with inflation. They do that with jobs especially. That's been there for the longest time. I remember when Obama said jobs that were saved, included that in there, jobs that were created or saved. It's like, how do you measure jobs that were saved? And how do you take credit for something like that as a president? It just doesn't, all that stuff is baloney. Just our press releases. Yeah.
Look at the numbers that came out on retail sales for December, the holiday season. Santa Claus didn't come to town. They were terrible. They were flat. Yeah. And then when you put inflation into it, they actually declined. But they don't talk about that. Yeah. The top 10% of Americans are responsible for 50% of the spending, about 49.8%. 10%. Again, so when you're looking at it, the retail sales were not flat, they were down. So and this is very important. The jobs that are being created, they're in social services, they're low-paying jobs, hospitality sectors. They're not high-paying jobs.
Right.
Again, when you look at the numbers. And here's the other number. You ready? Yesterday, the Federal Reserve credit card balances hit a new high in the fourth quarter, rising $44 billion. You ready? $1.28 trillion. And household debt increased 5.5%.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Trump's going to fix all that. He's going to put a moratorium on high credit card fees for a year. I looked at that, I said, I can do better than that if I just want to move if I've got a balance, I can move it to another credit card company. They'll give me 1 year for no interest or something, and some of these things if you want to move that way. But what a joke that is. It's a combination of demagoguery and Democrat economics, isn't it?
Well, look at the cover of the magazine.
Yeah, pull
Trump
that up.
Said, I really got a big ego.
Yeah. See if we can pull that up, Travis. We should show the cover there. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy.
I bet big ego. Again, as I told you, I taught close combat for many years. And my close combat teacher, Master John Perkins, who was the student of Bradley Steiner, who was the top close combat guy in America, who used to write for the Trends Journal magazine, may they both rest in peace. The first thing you learn in close combat, the only time your ego gets into place is when your life is on the line. That's the only time you have an ego. Don't mess with me.
Yeah.
Trump brags about his ego. Look at anybody Google up what having a big ego means. It's all negative.
Yeah.
It's all negative. You don't brag about having a big ego.
That's right.
It's a decline of your mind.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm better than you. You're nobody, all right? Don't you know who I am? My daddy left me $500 million in real estate when he died, all right? I'm Donald Trump. I'm a spoiled little rich kid. You're a nobody.
Yeah, you talk about how the geeks inherit the earth. I say, you know, when you look at Trump's politics, it's not geopolitics, it's ego politics. Just switch a couple of letters around, right?
That's great.
Yeah. You said something I didn't like. I'm going to put 100% tariffs on Canada tomorrow. So that's
ego
it.
politics. That's great. That's a good one. That's perfect. Yeah. It's not, ego politics.
Yeah.
And again, what he's doing with this ICE and how these guys in there,
it disgusts me.
It's terrible. They're dressed up in this military with these masks, with these guns and weapons, and what's happened to this country?
Yeah. And wearing camo in the city.
Yeah.
What is that about? That's stupid. But what is really bad was I read an op-ed piece to the audience from a guy who is a retired Marine, and he said, look at the firepower these guys have got. And, you know, there's like 8 guys, and there's one little black lady who's opened up the door to them, and they're all pointing their weapons at her. And yeah, it's crazy when you look at this kind of stuff. It's like, what is going on in this country? But we know what it is. He wants to have a conflict. He wants to have a civil war, and he wants to weaponize and militarize the police and use the military as police. This is part of the control. I mean, it's just a continuum of taking us to war, of doing the COVID war, the COVID lockdown, all these totalitarian policies. This is why I said, you know, we fought this battle. I just couldn't believe it at InfoWars. I mean, we covered the militarization of the police for the longest time. And then when it actually starts rolling out, now Alex is cheering it. It's crazy.
I know.
It's crazy what's happening.
Well, he's a sellout.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just did it's going to be going up tonight. I did an interview with Judge Andrew Napolitano, and he has the articles in the Trends Journal. The coming constitutional ice age. Last fall, during the opening of the United Nations in New York City, I recognized the face of a federal officer from his days working in law enforcement in New Jersey and mine as a trial judge. We chatted, and I asked him what he was doing. He told me he worked for the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. I asked what ICE has to do with the UN, and he told me ICE will be everywhere. When I asked if ICE becomes a paramilitary force answerable to the White House, he just smiled as if to say, don't quote me. When I asked him why he was carrying 2 handguns and an AK-47 automatic rifle, he laughed and said, quote, I have more than you can see, Judge.
Wow. And, you know, they're putting ICE agents in for some of these Olympic games, and they had a big pushback in Italy against that, I think. You know, it's like, get them out of here. Why are they're like a Praetorian Guard going
Look what they did
It's
to that guy
insane.
Petrie. They shot him in the back how many times?
Yeah.
You got 8 guys on him, thrown him to the ground, and they lie about it. They lie about what happened. They lie about what they did with that woman Good because of all the videos that came out. And now they're arresting people doing nothing.
Yeah. That's what Travis just put up on the screen. He says, ICE at the Winter Olympics. He goes, well, it is the Winter Olympics. I would expect that's why they're sending ICE, right? But it truly is insane, and it truly is the federal police that we've always worried about. And I'm seeing so many conservatives who used to major on that, talk about we got to support the local law enforcement against the trend to centralize control and centralize law enforcement unconstitutionally in Washington. And they're just silent about it because nobody wants to criticize Trump. You criticize Trump, you get fired. You criticize Trump, you lose your audience. So everybody's just silent about it. If they talk about it at all, they won't mention his name. It's like this is something that's happening that doesn't involve him at all when he's the guy who's running it all. That's the amazing thing about this. Truly is amazing. Well, it's always great talking to you, Gerald, and we're just about out of time here. And just want to remind everybody that you can get the excellent Trends Journal. These are, everything we've been talking about here is covered and more. Of course, it's a huge publication, weekly now. And with the discount, I forget what it comes to, but with a 10% discount with the code NIGHT, you get it for a very, very small amount of money, as Gerald always points out. Contrast it with the No News, Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times. They don't really have anything, but you can keep up with the latest kidnapping story if you go there. While these guys are kidnapping our country, it truly is amazing. At gunpoint, I would add as well. We got masked men who are kidnapping this 84-year-old lady, but meanwhile, we got masked men who are kidnapping the country everywhere, and nobody wants to talk about that, right? So thank you for joining us, Gerald, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you. The Common Man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.